Welcome to ExceedTV, an online video production produced by Exceed Online, an e-commerce and online marketing agency based in Auckland, New Zealand, and Sydney, Australia. My name is Jason Greenwood, and I'm here with my co-host, Lance O'Grady, as per usual, and it is the first day of June 2012 already.
I know, halfway through the year.
Unbelievable. How did that happen? It snuck up on us very, very quickly. This episode of ExceedTV will be talking about Google Analytics. This is actually part 2 of a 3-part series on Google Analytics. We've already covered one part, which was reasonably high level. This particular episode will go into a little bit more depth, a little bit more discussion around what Google Analytics can bring to your business and how you can benefit from using Google Analytics. As always, the outline will be available as a PDF. We'll provide the link to our resources section of our website underneath this video, as well as links to our Facebook page and all of our other social mediums as well. So feel free to check that out as soon as the video is over, and you can reference all the stuff we've discussed today. As I said, we'll be talking about Google Analytics today, and I'll just jump straight in, Lance, and we'll start talking about why should businesses use, specifically online businesses, but also some of the offline efforts as well, why should businesses use Google Analytics? So we'll jump straight into that. As discussed on the last episode, which will want to reference, it's a free product. Yeah. So you're not paying for the software. It's a big win there in terms of cost. You can't get much cheaper than free, although having said that, there's a lot of hidden costs involved in making good use of Google Analytics, and our audience will want to reference our last episode as we discuss that in more detail. In terms of measurement, it measures some things that you may not otherwise be able to easily measure, even take into account log file analysis and some of the other analytics tools out there. They're not as good as Google Analytics in a lot of ways. Some of the key measurement metrics are your traffic, your conversions, your customer lifetime value, and repeat engagement. So it doesn't give you specific data down to a specific name of a client, but it gives you, in generic terms, broad measurements of your revenue over time and showing trends. So very, very useful in that regard. It provides accountability for you, your website, and your chosen website agency. So if you've got an agency that you're engaging with to spend money with for online marketing, it helps to provide transparency to the higher-ups, the bosses making the spend decisions. Hey, how good of a job is the agency doing? Are they adding value? So pretty important to have those metrics. It also provides e-commerce, site search, goal funnel, and event tracking. I'll just go into brief detail on each of those because some in our audience may not actually know what that is. So in terms of e-commerce tracking, it provides, with the appropriate code inserted on the site, it'll allow you to track your revenue. So every time a sale is made through your website, it'll transfer the value of that sale into Google Analytics as revenue, and you can track that over time. So very important to do.
Absolutely.
It'll allow you to track, once again, with a little bit of custom setup, site search. So what are clients searching for once they get to your website? So what are those search terms? So we track those, we look at those trends over time, and we take action based on that information. Goal funnel is simply a series of pages typically leading to a specific event or a goal that you want to track, and what that funnel of pages looks like and that process that they follow, and where a client might, a visitor might fall out of that funnel and how you can fix that. So that's an important thing to track. Event tracking, a very, very critical thing that is trackable in GA. Events are things like clicking on a YouTube video. Do they click start, stop, pause? Do they watch the entire video? Downloading PDF documents from your website. You can track these individual events that aren't a page view. So normally Google Analytics tracks things on a page view model. These are an event view model. So instead of generating a fake page view or a theoretical page view, you're actually tracking a specific event within a page.
And it gives you valuable insights into what people are doing, which you otherwise would have no idea about.
Exactly. You'd have absolutely no idea. So very, very good to track that. It provides transparency in the form of custom dashboards and for specific business units and staff members. So what I'm saying here is that a dashboard is simply a collection of reports in one place. So instead of having to look throughout Google Analytics for all the reports you're looking for, you can drag and drop those into a cohesive catch area of known as a dashboard in Google Analytics. You can add up to 10 different reports to one single dashboard, and you can automate emails coming out of that dashboard to send you that data on a weekly, monthly, or quarterly basis. So that's very useful. And within that same email, you can attach as many dashboards as you like. So really, although you're limited to 10 reports to a dashboard, you're not limited to how many dashboards you can email at one go.
Okay, so from there you might want to have something go out to a specific marketing manager in a company, maybe an IT manager, different metrics for him. They don't need to know the same thing. So
yes,
that's what you use it for?
Absolutely. And so a CEO really typically only wants to look at a couple of things.
Core details,
Yep, they want to look at revenue. That's typically what they want to look at. They want to look at revenue, they want to look at conversion rate, and that's what percentage of visitors are they converting to customers? If they understand that, they typically want to know that, and they want to know how much money their website's making them, and that's about it.
Makes sense.
Yep. So marketing's going to want to know a whole lot more than that. So customized dashboards, very, very useful, particularly within the new GA. Which is just released very recently. GA5 has a lot more functionality in that area.
Cool.
The other thing is actionable insights, opportunity analysis, and data-informed driven decision making. So what we mean by that is instead of making decisions based on gut feel, we're actually looking at the data and saying, okay, what is the data telling us, and what needs to change on our website or our approach to our client base to get them to take the actions on our website that we want them to take. And so you might have 15 different people that are decision makers in a business and around a website in terms of its design, in terms of its functionality. But if you can point to hard data and say, the data is telling us this, we should take the action because of this. This is where we're weak. This is where we're strong. This is where we can make improvement. Then it's no longer a cat fight within a business. It's very, very simple. It comes down to the data. So that's a beautiful benefit of GA. The next thing I think that we want to really talk about, and I'll hand this over to you, Lance, is why should a business look at outsourcing their GA analysis? So why, instead of looking into Google Analytics themselves, why should they possibly engage with a company like Exceed Online or any other qualified Google Analytics agency? Why would they not want to keep that in-house?
I think that comes down to a range of reasons. I guess the main one is it comes down to expertise and skill.
Sure.
I guess it takes a large analytical type brain to process all the information in Google Analytics, because you've just gone through and told us, there's a massive range of data and reports and insights in there, and it's not just a matter of looking at them and saying, oh yes, that's what it is. It's not just as easy as looking at it and understanding. You really need to be able to process that data and make actionable insights, like you mentioned. So I guess it's not a tool that's easily learned or picked up quickly. It takes a lot of experience, years and years of training, and obviously as the years go on, you'll get better and better at looking at data and digging deep. That's another core thing that a lot of companies don't realize, is that on the surface you can get a good amount of data, but if you're outsourcing and getting an agency to look at it, they're digging down into the core metrics, and they're not just looking at it at a high level and saying, oh yes, everything looks to be everything looks to be good.
Yeah.
It's a matter of taking away those top levels and looking at, well, okay, why isn't this number better? What's dragging that down? And that's done through segmenting and filtering and custom reports and all that type of thing.
Yep. I
guess a way to think of it would be, you wouldn't rebuild the engine on a car if you weren't a mechanic or have had a lot of mechanical experience. You wouldn't just think, I feel like I can see the engine, I understand the idea about it, but I'm going to try and rebuild it. That's just, it's something you do.
Yeah. I wouldn't do it, and I'm pretty mechanically inclined, and I wouldn't rebuild my engine.
Definitely not. So I think, taking that, it's the dividends in terms of, revenue growth and customer engagement and things like that can be huge if you're using analytics properly. And because a lot of companies don't have the time or resource, it's really crucial to think about, well, we've got GA installed, but we really want to make the most of it. So how can we? And often the answer is outsourcing. I mean, you could hire someone internally, but that might be a resource drain, and it might not be a full-time job. And it should be something that should have a lot of effort put onto it.
Sure. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, you're probably not going to hire someone 40 hours a week for Google Analytics analysis, but you really need someone with a 40-hour-a-week brain dedicated to analytical issues to be able to derive the most benefit from it.
And I guess that links into the next point, that the reporting that comes from Google Analytics should act as the backbone of any business. This should be what you base your decisions on. Like you said, don't just go make snap decisions or gut feelings. You really need to have data to back that up. And that's what you'll find in Google Analytics, and that's what outsource agencies or experts will be able to tell you. Don't go and do that. It's working fine, but these are some other areas you could make improvements. So
of course.
I think the core of why you could potentially use an outsource agency is it provides insights that you couldn't get any other way.
I would agree with that 100%.
And we've discussed this a little bit last week, but some of the key metrics or the metrics you really would want to look at or should be focusing on Google Analytics are traffic sources.
Yep.
So we covered this a few weeks ago in an episode specifically about traffic sources, but understanding where your traffic are coming from, how many, the quality of the traffic could be hugely beneficial for your business.
Yep.
And that's something that you'd probably put in a dashboard to show a breakdown of where traffic is coming from. Direct is often showing offline marketing efforts, referral, or how strong your relationships. So it's really good for different people to see where your traffic is coming from. Bounce rate. Now this is a really low hanging fruit in terms of optimization.
Yep.
Realistically, there's no good bounce rate. The best bounce rate you'd want is 0%, which means that 0 people are landing on your page and not clicking anywhere.
Sure.
Everyone is staying. But,
possibly a little unrealistic to have 0% bounce
unrealistic,
rate. I've never seen it.
Yeah. What I'd say is something to aim for is 25%.
Yes.
But, that's quite good. And what we find is more like 40% is the global average. But, 40%, that's still almost half of your traffic leaving when they land on your site. So the lower you can get that number, the better it's going to be.
Sure. And obviously you just want to see ultimately the trend moving down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
And that's through, various optimization techniques, and that's all uncovered through Google Analytics.
Sure.
Branded and unbranded traffic is another thing that a lot of people would like to see, and that kind of shows you both. Branded will show you how well your brand is in the market, brand awareness. Mm-hmm. So that's people typing into Google Exceed Online. That shows us how many people actually know of our brand. Whereas if somebody typed in SEO, for example, and they were looking for an SEO agency and we came up, that shows us how well we're positioned for unbranded keyword traffic. And that's important to see where people are coming from in terms of your brand awareness, but also how much of the market you're capturing for people who are looking for the best solution, not necessarily your company. So that's something that a lot of people would like to look at. Mm-hmm. And then we've got some metrics that are not misleading. I wouldn't use the word misleading, but you look at them and a lot of people, without further analysis or digging deeper, you wouldn't really understand them. And a good example of this is pages per visit.
Sure.
So, they call it an engagement metric, and in a way it is, but it's not really. So at a high level, it says that, you've got an average pages per visit of, say, 4, which is roughly the global average. But if you think about people who convert and you segment that down, you can see people who actually convert to sales typically view, roughly 20 pages per visit. So, the higher that number, the better, but you've got to filter down to get that data. You can't just look at it on a high level.
And it doesn't necessarily define engagement quality. So it's a pure standalone engagement metric, but you might look at a lower number of pages per visit as better if it means that your clients are finding what they want on your website faster and completing their purchase faster. So as you say, it's a throwaway metric on its own until you start segmenting down and looking at it. This is one of those deep dive sessions that you would do, and so once again, someone who's not familiar with Google Analytics would never look to segment that any further. And I think that clearly shows that's just one metric out of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of metrics that are tracked in Google Analytics that require really deep analysis for it to be useful and actionable.
Absolutely.
Cool. I think you've covered some really, really handy top-level metrics that we can see add value to business. One of the other things that we can do to get the best out of Google Analytics, I believe, is to look at trends. So more than anything else, and instead of looking at specific numbers in isolation, looking at six-month blocks of time, I find to be very, very useful when looking at Google Analytics numbers, seeing if the trend is up, if it's a trend you want to be up, such as revenue, if it's a trend that's down, in the case of a metric you want to be down, which is bounce rate, which you typically would isolate out by the type of visitor that comes due to traffic source. So it's combining several metrics together to see what the trends are over time for those metrics, that see how they work together and influence each other. I think that's really important. And some of the other things that we do often is looking at year-over-year date range comparisons. So if we're looking at the current 6-month period and look at the year ago 6-month period, we want to look at those two trends together. So we want to see those two trend lines overlaid on top of each other and see, okay, what was this same, if the trend is down for revenue, was it down at the same time last year? And are there reasons for that? Is our business seasonal? If there's no reason for it, and last year for the same 6-month period revenue was up and this year revenue is down, what are we doing different this year? And what do we need to perhaps look at last year that we did better? So that's some really important stuff. Once again, we talked about segmentation a little bit, talked about custom reports and custom dashboards, so I won't go into much more detail there. But once again, how do you get the best out of GA? I think segmentation, custom reporting, date range comparisons, and custom dashboards for specific portions of the business, specific business units, I think is really important. And I think because GA integrates, and we use that term GA interchangeably with Google Analytics, it's a bit of an affectionate term in case you were wondering, it does integrate with other tools, and I'll let you talk a little bit about that, Lance.
Yeah, I think one of the main ones, and again, it depends on your whole business strategy, but one of the main ones that you probably use or should be using is integration with Google Adwords.
Sure.
So if you're driving PPC traffic to your site, you can actually integrate a two-way integration with Google Analytics. So AdWords, you can set it up so it auto tags and it's connected to your analytics. So if it's auto tagged, it'll pass through campaign data and keyword data, so you can actually see all that information in Google Analytics. And also you can link up in Google Analytics, you can link up your cost source data, so you can actually pull in the actual cost and click data. So by doing that, you can actually see all your data in Google Analytics, transactions, as well as click data, so you can compare cost to revenue.
Yes, and click-through rates and all the rest.
Yeah, and similarly, you can import your conversions from Google Analytics into the AdWords interface. There is two ways to do it. You can either create your own AdWords conversions, which we typically don't want to do. We'd prefer to import the ones from Google Analytics and use them as a single source of truth.
Sure.
It also integrates nicely with Google Webmaster Tools and Website Optimizer. And
yes.
Website Optimizer is actually slowly getting built into Google Analytics, which is going to make it a lot simpler moving forward. Still in kind of a beta testing stage, but...
Can you give us a high-level overview of what Webmaster Tools and Website Optimizer do? Just very, very quick for the audience members that may not know.
Webmaster Tools gives you, I guess, a very technical overview of where the website is from some degrees in terms of site speed, robots text, what Google see when they crawl your site, as well as some metrics into what people are searching for as a whole, not specifically for your website, but keywords relevant to your industry or websites specifically, and you know, the overall search demand for that. And Google Website Optimizer allows you to do a lot of A/B or multivariate testing, and that'll be covered in a later episode, I'm sure, because that's a massive topic
all on its own right. Yep.
Tagging emails and other social and offline campaigns are crucial. So a lot of email programs will integrate Google Analytics in, so you just have to basically connect the two up and it's done. Otherwise, for some social and offline campaigns, you can set up URL tagging, so you can set up parameters and you can define what the campaign is and what the
so name, for example, the
campaign name, the medium, all that type of thing. You can put that in the URL string, and that'll track it in Google Analytics.
Sure.
So the integration is very important, but obviously the first step is making sure that you've got Google Analytics set up correctly to start with.
And it's tracking things. Brilliant. I think one of the things that we had talked about, you know, in the lead up to this episode was the amount of available resources out there around Google Analytics. Because it is a free software tool, there's a lot of people wanting to learn more about it. And what are some of the resources around it if you want to learn more, if you want to get better at using Google Analytics. One is obviously going through your chosen web agency for a bit of training. We do a lot of training here at Exceed Online. We'll put together a customized training session depending on if there's very specific things you want to learn, then we'll customize a training session for you. If you simply want to run through at a high level through pretty much every single tab in analytics and understand what they do and what they mean at a high level, so you can make some top level use of analytics, we certainly will do that as well. You know, and most agencies do. They offer some form. Well, I should say Google Analytics qualified agencies that are actually certified by Google, who have that training in-house and that they can then pass that skill on to their clients. For agencies that don't, they would typically outsource that to an agency like Exceed. So you may run across that. Some of the other resources, and I'll just run across them very, very fast because there is so many, and this will be in the outline so that you can click on it after the episode. They can look at the outline and you can click through to those things. We provide hyperlinks and the whole lot. The GA blog, there's a very, very good Google Analytics blog that gives you the latest updates to analytics. There's the GA RSS feed as well, which you can sign up to. There's the GA YouTube channel, which is a fantastic. Avinash Kaushik and Nick, I can't remember his surname, but they're brilliant guys, very intelligent. Avinash is brilliant. In fact, speaking of Avinash, he is the digital marketing evangelist for Google, and he's director of a couple of other companies as well, and probably one of the top analytics minds in the world. He's won awards globally, and he's written books. One of them being he's got a blog for one called Occam's Razor, and he's written books such as Web Analytics 2.0. Avinash Kaushik will have his links in there. And then the final one is the GAIQ program, which is the individual qualification under Google Analytics. This is a training program and certification offered and run by Google. Do a quick Google search or follow our links, and you'll be able to take the training, get certified, and at least have a really, really good foundational level of knowledge to get started, and hopefully, like Lance and I anyway, to get really excited about and hyped up about analytics, because it seems really boring. It sounds like a boring topic. But I tell you, when you start seeing some of that data and seeing some of the actions that you can take that will directly impact your business very quickly in a positive way, that gets everyone excited about Google Analytics. Yeah. So I think some of the things that we've talked about today, I'll let you run across, I guess, a summary, and then that's it for this episode.
Yeah, so I think we've covered, obviously, why you should be using GA.
Yep.
And the potential benefits of outsourcing it to an agency like Exceed Online or another authorized agency. It's important to think about the authorized agency part. You don't want to give it to someone,
cowboy.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to give it to someone who says they know what they're doing, but they might not. So you can actually check. There's a link, we'll put it in the video description, about where you can check to see which agencies are authorized by Google.
Brilliant.
We've talked about key GA metrics, and again, there's thousands, but there is 5 or 6 that are crucial to look at.
Yes.
And we've talked about what you can do to get the best out of GA, and that covers integration and things like that. Next week, we've got Head of Marketing Ken Daniels in for an interview about Google Analytics, and again, this will be, we'll make sure we reference everything in our documentation below so you can find out more information about Ken and all that kind of thing. But I think we've covered everything we need to today, so thanks for coming in, Jason, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you very much.